What is up, everybody? This is going to be sort of my settings with Jigsaw. I've been asked many times, actually, over the past, what are my settings? What's going on? They are subject to change, but I'll give it to you now as of whatever date the video says this was made on. I run 3 screens, so we're going to go over those 3 screens real quick. So this is my Sierra charts. So on Sierra charts, this is just a 1-minute chart. And then there's a profile here. You can't see it because currently it's 3:37 p.m. my time. At like 3:15 it resets the profile, and then and by the time the New York Stock Exchange or regular trading hours open up, this profile is built up. So I have my overnight session in there, and I'll just go only in case you use Sierra charts. I'm using VPD for the study. We'll go ahead and look at the so you're going to want to go ahead and pause the video and just screenshot this stuff, or just pause the video and put in the same settings if you want everything to be exactly the same. We're going to go over Jigsaw but I'm just going to go ahead and show you everything. Like you can see the start time, all that bullshit, the end time. So I'll go ahead and just sort of scroll down so you can see it. Display volume in bars. So here's right here. You want to screenshot it. A lot of it's default. Most of the changes are up in the before I started scrolling. And then you want to screenshot here. All this shit is pretty much default down here. A lot of it's defaulted. And then also this current price line, it's pretty easy to use if you want to screenshot that. It's just this green line you see going across the shit right here. Those are the only 2 studies. Otherwise, I run multiple daily profiles. So if we look at the analysts, same thing with the current price line. It just extended further. It's 1,000 because, I mean, that's how many bars it goes back or what have you. And then again, the volume by price, whatever. This is going to be different. You're going to want to screenshot it. Same thing with the start time and the end time. That's very important. Which I believe you have to go to chart settings as well. Whatever. So if you want to just go ahead and hold on, none, 70 and none. Give me just a second. That should be about the top. You want to pause it there, kind of make sure everything looks the same. And then we'll go down. All this shit's default down here. Sometimes I'll run a TPO. I just don't have it up right now, but these are the only things I'm looking at in the current market conditions. Chart settings. So in this chart setting, you're going to want this graph draw type to be blank on this, so it doesn't show like bars. And it's only for these daily profiles. And then you got your start time, end time. The start time and the end time are going to be the same over here, except for the chart type is default, which are just bars. I prefer bars. You can do candles, but I just prefer bars. And then, of course, you know, I zoom in and out. I use hotkeys a lot for everything. So, again, the profile's not quite built up. That's that. The main screen, the center screen, is, of course, what you see in all my videos. And then we'll go to the other screen. That was my streaming software, which is vMix. People ask about streaming software. I use vMix. I paid for it. However, if you want to do a free alternative, OBS, you just literally Google that shit. OBS. This is free right here. You probably notice my tape stays on top. We'll get into that in a minute. Open broadcast. You can screen capture there and then have a YouTube channel set up. And what you can do with your YouTube is this is what the back room looks. I use Studio Classic, so it's going to look a little different. But if you get into the back room of YouTube, this is Studio Classic. I don't use the new shit for the live streaming thing. Let me see if this... yeah, okay, yeah, you can see it. It has a lot of latency, so stream options, you're going to want normal latency for the best, highest quality playback. Don't worry about cards. You create... oops, fuck me. What is it? What did I do? Here we go. Basic info. Put it on private. Nobody can see it when you do that. And that's how I review my trades. You're going to take this link and put it into your OBS, and there's going to be a stream key here. You can reveal it. You don't want people to have access to your stream key because that means they can stream onto your YouTube. You can reset it, though. When I hit reveal, another tab will pop up that says reset. I can reset it. And all you do is take this code and you put it into your streaming software. So that's very easy to do. This is the main screen. The next screen, my third screen off to my right-hand side. So Sierra Charts is on my left-hand screen. Of course, in all my main videos, I have my center screen. This one is the same DOM as you see in the center screen, but it's smaller, like the font is smaller. So if we look at the font, it's under appearance, it's only 6. So, and I got rid of a bunch of columns and shit. I just want to see the volume profile. I want to be able to see the price, which is very hard to see. And the bid and offer, you can't really see. I don't think you can get rid of that. And then, of course, I can type here, which you can barely fucking see it. But I do this because the moves have been so violent and volatile with the whole COVID meltdown and all that shit, with the market being so thin. So the moves would go off the screen, and it's very hard to keep track of patterns. So this is why this is set to 6. So, you know, when you set the DOM to 6, everything's smaller, but it allows me to see the overall movements better. So this is the same exact DOM as my main screen. You just don't have all these columns and shit in it. So I can see the patterns. It's also set to 4 seconds. Your interval is 4 on this particular one. So where my main screen is usually 1 to 2 seconds, the other one is 4, so I can keep track of patterns. And again, my Sierra Charts is set to 1 minute. So it's a top-down approach. Most retail traders do that shit. You know, you have a daily, a 30-minute, a 5-minute, whatever. I kind of do the same thing. I got a 1 minute, my 4 second, and then my 1 to 2 second on the main one. Which sounds chaotic, but I'm a momentum scalper. I need to know every little pivot, every little pop, everything. So that's what I need to see. Again, when I'm reading order flow too, I need to see that shit. So I do look for good setups on the 1 minute. And then I try to verify pivots. Certain pivots you're going to see on the 1 second chart and the 4 second chart, you're not going to see on the 1 minute. There's certain pivots you just don't see on the 1 minute. The 1 minute doesn't show you everything like a 1 second would. And I use, of course, 4 second here so I can kind of condense it. As you can see, like, look at this little mountain right here. You see that little peak right here, and then you have this higher high here. Now, if we go back and look at my 1 second, you can see it here as well and right here as well. So on the 4 second, I can still see pretty much every rotation. On the 1 second, it just tightens it up ever so slightly, so I can see more of the pattern. I can see more of where my pivot highs and lows are to the exact price. And it's just easier to see it on this particular DOM than, say, Sierra Charts. Again, it's just a top-down approach. I need it. I use it. You don't have to do this. Also, this is where I change my order quantity. I use hotkeys, so you can see it's 1 contract, 4 contract. I'll go up to, whoops, I don't want to ever do 6 or 46 or whatever. So 6, you know. So if I'm like trading 4 contracts and I want to scale out of my position, I got a hotkey where I'll hit 2 and I'll scale out half real quick. And it's a whole macro key thing. I have a video on the macro key and how to gain an edge, become faster. I don't know what the video is. I'll put the link in the description. I briefly talk about X keys, so if you want to know about macro keys, that's what that is. If enough of you guys want to know more about that shit, I'll make a video on X keys. So like if I hit the flat button on my X keys, you can notice that it says flat right here. I'll hit it and you can see it's quickly tapping it. So what I noticed on Jigsaw is you can put in a flat key and you can put it into where like if I go to my settings, shortcut keys. So, this is where you can have flat button, Control A. So the thing is, I'm plotting my mouse over here to hit this flat key button, and you may think that takes longer. It's actually quicker than having the programmed key on here. It's kind of hard to explain. So I noticed using a macro key that moves my mouse is quicker to flatten out of positions. And of course, I have a market button on my hotkeys and on my macro pad, and it goes back to the center DOM. So it's very quickly, like watch how quickly this returns to the center. I'm gonna see how quick that is. I'm just very quick, and it does what it needs to do. It plots it, it exits me out and shit. So, and there's my flat key, and I recenter the DOM with this macro pad. Again, I'll put the link in the description if you want to see what the device looks like, or you can go to X keys and just look that up online. As far as my settings go, we'll go ahead and go over the main one, because your default shit's not going to look like this. In some of my other videos, this font is bigger. It's smaller now because of how volatile the market is. So I go to settings. Here's what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to pause the video as I go through these. I'm not going to explain everything. Just make yours look the same. Make sure all the checkboxes are the same. Now, so this bid snapshot column, I don't use that. I made it intentionally blank right here. What bid snapshot and ask snapshot is, it basically shows you when traders are pulling orders on the limit. So I don't use that because I can see when they're canceling. Visually, I can see it, and orders are always going to be canceled to some extent. So just because orders are being canceled doesn't necessarily mean it's spoofing or traders are getting out of the way. There's always going to be some orders that gets canceled off. And here's what the default. Maybe I can show you that real quick. Give me just a second. Here's what the default shit looks like. See this -1, this 0, and all that shit. It's kind of showing you like orders being canceled off or added, I believe. So you can see -3 on the 11. That's just more shit to look at that I don't need to look at. The less shit I look at, the better, and I already look at enough shit. So I don't need that. I don't need that information. I can visually read my bids and offers and see when people are canceling, because I've developed that skill over time. You see like -4. That's no big fucking deal. I mean, that means nothing to me. Unless you really understand this and you have the skill to do this, this isn't going to help you that much, I don't think. I really don't think. And again, it's more shit to look at. The wider your DOM is, the further your eyes have to travel. Okay, it's kind of like, in a fighter jet, you got the heads-up display. It has your altimeter, your speed and knots. On the HUD, if you don't know what a HUD is on a fighter jet, it's called a heads-up display. Fighter jet HUD. Everybody probably knows what the fuck that is. So if you really look at this thing, like, see how it gives you all this information and you're looking right out the window of the plane, and these same readouts are down below on the dash, but as a fighter pilot you get into intense situations where you don't want to move your eyes down there because that can make a huge difference. Same thing with what's going on in the Jigsaw. This is too fucking wide. Look how wide this is. It's too wide that I don't need all that information. So that's just the stock. So I don't use that. So I have one on there intentionally blank, so that way I can overlay my tape on top. So, and also this allows me to scroll my footprint as well, because I want my footprint over there. My footprint is a piece of information that isn't as important to me as what's going on in here. So from, you know, the profile all the way over to the tape, like in this little zone is where my eyes are pretty much most of the time. And I want everything to be as close as possible. This little column could probably be a little smaller. Yeah, that can definitely be smaller. I don't want to take the trade, but for instance, like, see how it says Q23? So I'm going to make that smaller, because that's, and now that that's shorter, you know, I can move this over, and then I can make this longer, which is nice. So, you know, and then of course this is where I type stuff in. Even this could be a little bit smaller. So VPOC, that's probably actually pivot is, I think, the biggest word I use. Yeah, so even that can be slightly shorter. The thinner it all is, the better, because you can scan back and forth with minimal eye movement, and that's so very important when it comes to being a very fast scalper. So, and then you can see how it all rolls. These are just pinned on top. We'll get into those settings. So again, you're going to want to look at this. So notice only bid snapshot is this, and then I color coded it so you can't see nothing back there. So go ahead and look at this. Update intervals, I've been playing around with that. 100 is the best. So what is update interval? Basically that means that these bids and offers are updated 100 or 10 times every second. So this is in milliseconds. So I believe there's 1,000 milliseconds per second. So these are being updated 10 times. I used to run it at 50. So these would be updated 20 times per second. But I did notice that when it was at 100, some of the guys, one of the guys in my trading room said, film it on your phone in slow motion. So what I do is I run another DOM next to this DOM, and I have one running at 100, and then I had one running at 50, and then you play it back in slow motion. And yes, you'll see the bids and offers refresh slightly more on the 50. However, on the 100 millisecond, the next tick or two would come in sooner on the 100. So the market would tick up before the 50. So that's an interesting thing. You have to sort of tune it. It's kind of, you can't have your cake and eat it too type deal. And I've not messed with any of this stuff down here. I need to figure that out. My scroll wheel sensitivity, because when the markets are real thin, you want to be able to scroll well. It's at 5. So again, you're going to want to make sure everything's checked the way mine's is. So we'll go to appearance, and I don't have mine auto center. I don't like that. Again, I constantly center it myself, because when it auto centers, it seems to throw shit off. If I'm really looking at something that I need to double check on and the market moves in a particular direction. It snaps the DOM, and I don't like that. So appearance, this one's at 10 font. Remember, the other one's at 6. So again, you're going to want to pause the video and just double check, and I'll just go through this. Here's bid depth. Oh, I'm sorry. What am I fucking clicking? Oh, whatever. What am I fucking clicking on? Okay, I guess this is miscellaneous. So MISC. Trade window. Alert. Trade column. I don't like to show my P&L. That shit throws you off. You shouldn't be looking at it. Definitely want to have those unchecked. Volume profile. Price. I don't have bid snapshot checked. Or do I? Is this bid snapshot? Whatever. In case you're wondering. Bid depth. Current at ask. Current. Oh, I'm sorry, that was current at bid. Current at ask. Ask depth. Ask snapshot. Total at bid. Total at ask. I don't use LTQ. LTQ's interesting. You're going to want to check out Jigsaw's help guide on that. That's a newer feature. I don't use that. Shortcut keys, whatever you want to do. Definitely highly recommend having shortcut keys. But again, I use a macro pad that plots my mouse because it's slightly quicker than a fucking hotkey with Jigsaw. It's just something I notice. It's just something I noticed. Here's trading. Of course, if you're going to be streaming on your channel, you want to hide your account name. So up here, you can see how there's stars. You want that to be hidden. Power meters. I don't use power meters currently. I know I've had them in the past. JSS. This is an interesting feature. Let's talk about this. Let me pull something up. I do use this. I do like this a lot. So what you're going to want is have some sort of spreadsheet like this. And whatever you want it to plot. So let's go ahead and look at Sierra charts. Okay. So when you're doing your morning prep, so my VPOC is 25-14 even. So I would go in here. So I have yesterday's point and control, overnight point and control, all that bullshit. So that's theoretically it's overnight point and control. So I would go in here and type in 25-14 even. I do this every morning. 25, I mean, if I'm trading in the mornings. 25-14 even. So what happens is it'll, whatever color I want it to pop up, you'll see. This is pretty trick. 25-14. So it'll be dark yellow. It should be. So I'm going to I'm going to download it as a CSV or comma separated values. Yep. Oops. I'm sorry. Give me just a second. I want to show you how this works. So I'm going to load it up. So it's probably going to throw me an error message because some of these levels are, I don't know. So you download it and then you put it in here, you browse on your computer, load it up. Okay, well, there's an error. So basically what it fucking does is it would come in here and it would type opaque for me automatically. And then it would put like a dark yellow line and it would go across the heat map. So this is how you can like put stuff in on the DOM. It's kind of cool. Load levels. I don't know what that fucking does. Auction Vista, which is the heat map. And then, I mean, all this shit, the cumulative, the volume bar, the depth. I don't use this shit. It's all stock. The crosshair I use. So that's all of the settings. So you're just going to want to like pause it on everything and just try to match it up. When you're done, you're going to want to save it down here. So your save file, and then you can load it up. However, as far as the heat map goes, interval 1, interval width. Okay, so I don't change any of these other things. The interval is what I'm always changing. That's the second, so it's in 1 second right now. So I go to my hotkeys and I can zoom out, which is beautiful. So this is what's beautiful about having a macro pad. Instead of me coming up here and scrolling, I can just press it there, and I don't think there's a hotkey for that. So I can make it, and then I can press a button to recenter my mouse over here real quick. Happening real quick. So now it's on 2 second, 3 second, 4 second, 5 second, and I can pound the shit out of it. 15 second. This is what I'm changing here and there. Depends how fast the market's going. It's so slow right now. I think 4 seconds is really where you want it to be at, because if it's zoomed in so much, you see these yellow lines. That's nothing. No transactions happen here within this many seconds. So you want to make sure that you don't have the yellow lines. Again, during regular trading hours, you're not going to have to worry about that, because this is obviously on a Sunday after hours. This stuff always stays the same. Interval width 4, circle tuner 7, depth tuner 4, depth scope 10. And then that should get you to have your shit look like mine. Now we'll get into the tape. It's 2 pieces of tape. Once you set one up, the other one is the same. So you're gonna settings. Here's all the settings for the tape. This is where this is gonna be important. Block trades 100, and that's how I get my block trades to invert. Oh, well, I'll show you how to invert it, but 100 is what the software identifies. So there's little arrows. You're going to move all this shit around. I just have volume over here, so you can like move stuff. I don't want to see time. So now you see it's printing time. I don't want to fucking see time. Okay, I don't know what condition is. Oh, at ask, at bid. I already know. I know that blue is at ask and red is at bid. I don't need to know that. So, alerts. I'm going to definitely hook up some audio to my shit. So, I'm going to definitely hook up audio to my shit. Fonts and colors. Let me make sure everything. Okay. Here's fonts and colors. Above ask. So that's at ask or bid, the first one. Above ask. Below bid. Between. Sweep. I don't use sweep, but I made all my sweep orders the same color. A sweep order basically means somebody clears out the entire bid or ask. One order did that. I like my shit to be simple, red and blue. Other than my blocks, I like them to stand out with the different colors. And here's your blocks, how you change the block orders, the pop. And then meters, I don't use meters, I don't think. Settings, again, your block, you can adjust it to however. Mine is at 100. This particular one doesn't filter anything, so if we look, the only difference between these two is this filter size, 20. So if market conditions are normal, I will only run a 20, and then this one would be 99 and up. And so that's the only difference. But since the market's thin, it's 0 and 20. And then they're the same thing. That's all you change in these two pieces of tape. Hopefully you've watched my how to read time and sales video, which is literally put out the other day or yesterday or whenever I get this up. So, so this one piece of tape, you're going to want to take the columns and minimize them. This is as thin as it gets. Again, I think audio is going to help. I'll be doing that in the future. This is exactly, this is, and also you're going to want it always on top. Problem is when it's always on top, it's always on top. I'll sometimes turn that off because, I mean, if you go over here, look at that shit. Look at that. See, it's always on top. And then I take just take it. You can make it as tall as you want, as thin as you want, whatever. I try to, I'll show you why mine's is set the way it is. There we go. So when the DOM is centered, see how the DOM is centered? You hit the center button, which is up here. It's centered. I want these numbers to be right, coming in almost exactly where, when I recenter it, I want to be able, because these are with a new, fuck, let me re-explain this. So these are all the new, when the way the tape prints is the newest orders are on top, and then you can see it shoving the older orders down. I want, again, the heads-up display theory. I want to be able to see my tape printing. I want to see those new orders coming in, and they need to be up here. So that's why my tape is the way it is, because it's closer. When I recenter the DOM, it's closer to here, so I can watch the order flow on the DOM, and then I'm able to see the tape printing in new orders at the same time, so my eyes don't have to travel as far, because, I mean, I see traders who have their fucking tape set up like this, they got the whole fucking thing running from the top to the bottom. Now if I'm, trying to fucking watch here and the tape coming in, look, my eyes have to travel further. You try it. Look at it. Look how much further your eyes got to go from here to there. So that's why my tape is set up the way it is. You want to set shit up to where it's all about what can I do to be quicker? What can I do to shave off time? Even if that means moving your windows in a way to where you don't have to look as far. Of course, this is the footprint. I used to run like a 5-minute footprint chart. I hate that shit. This is why I like Jigsaw, because all these columns are the same height. That's what's beautiful about it. And I don't need the footprint as much. That's why this is blank and the tape is here. The tape's a little more important than the footprint. That's why it's off to the side, but I can see down here there's absorbing. And of course, as you guys know, I clear out my market orders, and all this is market orders that aren't cleared out. So now that I know that if we come down here, we might get hung up on 20 even. Well, obviously, because there's size sitting there or whatever that we got through. And now we're starting to see a little bit of absorption in here. But again, all these numbers get jumbled up. I need to clear them out. So that's what that is. Now, occasionally this footprint gets too big, so I have a hotkey to clear it all out. Sometimes it needs to be cleared out, but it scrolls together. I like everything to work in unison, be the same height. This is why I love Jigsaw. You know, the heat on the heat map is the same height as each row is. All that shit is exactly the same exact height. So every time this bar prints, it's the same height as the price. The bid is the same height as the offer, as the market orders coming in, as the volume profile. Everything is the same height. The footprint is the same height. It all scrolls together, and that makes it easier, because if you're running different pieces of software, it doesn't mesh together, and then it takes more time to move your eyes from one screen to another. Or, you know, I mean, like, look, for example, I mean, look how small and tight that is. You know, I got to sit here and try to fine tune it to get the price exactly the same height, and then it's not matched up perfectly. You know, here's the current price, but it looks like shit. You know, you don't have these nice little horizontal lines separating everything. You don't have these nice vertical lines separating everything. That's why running a footprint on Jigsaw over Sierra charts or whatever you use is a lot better. I mean, of course I use Sierra charts, I mean, for daily profiles and all that, and I look at 1 minute patterns over there that it really doesn't matter on here. But when it comes to really scalping and being able to perform, I need everything to be in a nice package that moves really well. Everything's the same height. It just is easier on your eyes, and if something's easier for you to read and see, then you can make quicker decisions. And when it comes to momentum scalping, every fucking second counts. Every millisecond fucking counts. I mean, my next purchase is going to be a lightweight mouse, so I can move the shit over. So there's one called the Model O. I'll do a review on it once I get it in. But, you know, everything counts when it comes to this lightweight mouse with all these holes drilled in it. I've held one of these. They're fucking just, they're so nice. They're so lightweight because, I mean, you know, I'm trying to, like, move the mouse from here to here. I want faster acceleration, because if you watch the way I trade on my videos, you know, maybe I want to get up here real quick and I want to set this here and I want to get over here and set a stop there. But if I can be slightly quicker on that movement, that's better. That's all better. It's all better. So that's what this is. This is my heads-up display. And I'll realign the DOM. And I like this to be slightly higher. I don't like it to be exactly at the center line. I like it to be up just a little bit, because that way I can see the first few orders rolling in a little bit. And of course I'll scroll it to match it sometimes, center it, whatever. So that's my setup. That's all three of my screens. While we're at it, X-Keys. So if you just put in a simple X-Keys Google search and you go to images, this is the smallest unit they have. I use this. You can put in key blockers, change out the keys to read whatever you want them to say. Again, I'll link the video in the description where I have an actual photo of mine. But I use a lot of hotkeys. I'm operating the mouse on one hand, and then I'm, my hotkeys, I got the auto center on it, and then I put sandpaper of different grits on the buttons so I can feel it out so I don't accidentally hit the wrong button. So hopefully that helps you with the settings. Again, this shit's subject to change. I tweak shit all the time, so that's what it is. That's how you're going to get it to look like mine.